Mr. Lieutenant Governor, the General Assembly took a big step closer this week to ending the state's death penalty. The bill still needs to go through the House of Delegates, but it's an issue that is one of the governor's biggest priorities. You have said that you have always been against the death penalty. Why do you feel that way, and why do you feel this is right now the right step for Maryland to take?
You know, Kojo, the death penalty and the debate around the death penalty brings out strong opinions on both sides. And regardless of where you are on the sort of the morality of state executions, for me, the death penalty system, it's biased, it's unreliable, and it hasn't served as a deterrent. Let me take up the issue of bias. You know, there are well-intended judges and prosecutors and law enforcement and correction officers that seek justice every day. Yet, if you look at the numbers in the death penalty system, they're alarming. What I mean by that is 13%, for example, nationwide, 13% of Americans are African American. Yet, 42% of the people on death row in America are African American. 80% of the death row inmates today in Maryland are African American. The numbers just don't stack up. There are biases in the system. I don't think the system will rid itself of those biases. So that's one of the reasons why I support replacing the death penalty with life sentences without the possibility of parole. That's not a light sentence. Jail.
Well, General Doug Gansler, when he was on this show, said that he thinks the fact that Maryland now has both of those gives prosecutors another option when they're prosecuting a case, because sometimes people will decide to go with life without possibility of parole because they want to avoid the death penalty. So the impression I got is that he doesn't necessarily want it taken off the table.
Well, you know, and I also oppose it because the death penalty is not reliable. So, for example, we have a case you don't have to look further than Maryland. I mean, this happens around the country. Since 1977, 140 people who were on death row were later freed. They were exonerated because of evidence that showed their innocence. In Maryland in 1991, a guy named Anthony Gray, he was charged with murder. He was threatened, if you will, with the death penalty. He pled guilty in order to get a life sentence. And 5 years later, Anthony Gray was released from